This is the BG Sports Show presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Vax.
And this is Sam.
Good Friday morning, Sam. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I am excited that it is finally Friday, and I'm sure everybody that is watching us on Periscope would agree, and those of you that are listening to us as well. It is Friday. You can finally look forward to that 5 o'clock hour, or maybe 3 o'clock if you're in school, or whatever time you are done with your work or / school day, and be like, finally.
It's the weekend.
Finally. You can breathe, you can relax. And I know that I am excited to finally get to my weekend because this week has been one of the longest weeks I have ever been a part of. Although anybody that's a realist, like, well, every week is the same amount of time. I'm like,
yeah,
just stop, okay?
It's true.
You don't live my life. You don't know what I do. But anyway, good morning to everybody. We're excited to have you here. We've got a lot of things in store for you today. Some fantasy football stuff for those of you that play the wonderful game that is fantasy football. We've got a good segment coming up for you on that one. Anybody that's a Milwaukee Bucks fan, we've also got some interesting insight on that. There was drama in the MLS playoffs last night as well during the final knockout rounds. And Sam, of course, will have his running 101 segment
That's right,
as
it's
well.
Friday.
Sam has outdressed me this morning. For those of you watching us on Periscope, he is looking fresh. He's got a nice little, I think I actually have the exact same shirt, honestly. But
next Friday.
Yeah. Well, either way. We'll have to call each other next time.
Deal.
Match. Perfect. And I'm just kind of wearing just a blue hoodie here.
Hey, but you got jeans now. You must have finished your laundry.
I did, yeah. Laundry's dried finally, so
Good.
I'm excited for that. Oh, my gosh. Anyway, so a lot of good things to get to today. Just a quick reminder for all of you that you can get us right here on Spreaker.com from 7 to 8 a.m. Central and on Periscope as well. So good morning to all of you. You can also get us on Sports Radio America from 11 to 1 p.m. Central Time and on Live 365 and TuneIn and on demand on iHeartRadio, iTunes, and on Spreaker.com as well. For those of you that want to get us on social media, find us on Facebook at The BG Sports Show, on Twitter, BG Sports Show, and I am at Baxter Colburn, and he's Samuel_Wallace2. All right, Sam, I think we need to address something right off the bat here on the show. I think we need to have a serious conversation about just the lack of consistency and, honestly, whether or not we think the Green Bay Packers have an offense problem. Because I think they do, honestly. I think that Aaron Rodgers and company have not performed to the best of their abilities this year, and honestly, it's been a little disheartening as a Packer fan and just someone that follows the sport of football to say, wow, one of the undefeated teams this year has looked not like they deserve to be undefeated.
It's true. It's very true.
So I've been kind of struggling with that so far this season and really just been like, you know what? How good is this Green Bay Packers team, in all honesty? And is there an actual concern about what this offense is going through right now?
Hard to say. I guess before the game last night, before the Thursday night football game, so heading into Week 8, assuming no football has been played, Aaron Rodgers is currently second with 15 passing touchdowns. He's only thrown a couple picks. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the stat line looks good. They're 6-0. They're finding ways to win games, but they just haven't been torching defenses that I guess Green Bay Packer fans are used to seeing week in and week out. If it's not clicking on all cylinders, then we really feel like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and that's the thing I'm wondering is there too many options for Aaron Rodgers to throw the ball to? Is having too many options to throw and to hand the ball off to causing the overall lack of production?
I don't think that would be it. I think maybe personally they're just really struggling with the lack of Jordy Nelson more than they thought they would. And again, they have a lot of depth at wide receiver, a lot of young talent. They're looking to get Devontae Adams back this week. I heard Ty Montgomery won't be back for maybe another week, but Randall Cobb is still looking good. James Jones has been a godsend for Rodgers.
He has, yeah.
Having somebody back in the fold who we used to play well with. But I think just that lack of a viable deep threat has really been tough because defenders no longer have to worry as much about getting beat down the field.
Oh, I agree.
They can fill the box a lot more. They can put guys in the middle. They can play up at the line and not have to worry about getting beat over the top.
Yep. Well, you talk about a lack of a deep threat here. You look, James Jones leads the team with 9 catches over 20-plus yards. He is first in the team. Randall Cobb is second with 5, but even James Jones, I would not consider him to be a fantastic deep threat. He's very good within like 10 to 15 yards of the line, but I have not ever really seen much from James Jones where it's like, oh, I'm going to just whip a bomb down the field, and I know James is going to catch it. When
he's
you throw
not
the ball
a speedster.
He's not. No, I mean, even when we saw him on that quick slant a few weeks ago against, I think it was Kansas City, where he had to run like 70-some yards. Like, yeah, he had a little bit of speed on him, but I wasn't overly like, whoa, look at all that speed he's got coming from him.
Yeah, I would consider that to be, what we would consider to be average wide receiver speed. Like, yeah, he's quick. He's supposed to be.
He's a
professional football player.
That. Yep.
But, when you watch Jordy Nelson have like that stutter step and go, he's got some breakaway speed. He's got some pretty good wheels on him when he gets going, and that's why defenders no longer have to worry about, James Jones, like you said, he's good in that 10 to 15-yard window. He's fantastic in the red zone. He's got a great set of hands. He's just smart. Yes. He's smart, and he knows where to put himself.
Yep.
But, like you said, he's not going to beat you down the field.
No, I agree with you on that one. So, does a lot of these offensive production issues stem from the lack of a running game this year? Because James Starks has done enough to keep the Packers relevant-ish on the running game. But then Eddie Lacy just has not had a very good season. And I know some folks have been like, well, this is exactly where Eddie was last year. I understand that, but if you take all of the off-season hype that was put on Eddie Lacy from where he should be last year to where he is now, take a look at it and somebody tell me where exactly you thought he was supposed to be at this point. Because I think so many folks are like, oh, he should be the best running back in the league by this point. Well, so should Adrian Peterson, but he's not.
And there was some talk, too, that late in the summer, early in the season before the preseason started, we were talking about how Eddie Lacy was somewhat projected to be the top running back in the NFL. And we're like, all right, come on. Remember
it's ridiculous.
Who throws the football in Green Bay?
Yeah, and that's the part I think that bothers me about it is because, look, that's great that you think Eddie Lacy is going to have a good day. And I remember going out and doing a video for the Sports Quotient as well, one of our good friends of the show, and saying that I thought ESPN was, honestly stupid. I didn't say stupid, but I basically started out the video by saying I've had it with ESPN because I'm like, that is ridiculous. There's no way that Eddie Lacy is going to be the best running back this year. Does he possibly leave the door open to be a good dual threat? Well, sure,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, he has shown that when he's feeling good, when he's 100%, when the offense is clicking, he is a guy who can rack off 90 to 100 yards rushing a game and get in the end zone. He's not bad at pass protection. He's good enough in the flat on screens for a check down.
Yes.
He's a very complete running back when he's playing well.
Yes, and I agree with you on that one. But one thing that's concerning for me, though, too, with Eddie Lacy and the Packers offense is that Lacy's put on a significant amount of weight since he's been here, which is a little disconcerting, honestly, because you want your running back, obviously, to bulk up and stay healthy, but his size doesn't look very healthy, in my opinion. It looks like he just is gaining weight just to gain weight a little bit, which has slowed him down, which has slowed his production down, which has made him more vulnerable as a runner as well, more to tackle.
Yeah, exactly. And quick side point here, we just had CPlast10 on Twitter tweeted us that James Jones is in fact 31 years old, which isn't old, really, but I don't know.
For an NFL wide receiver, I can see the argument why saying that he's 31. I actually didn't realize that he was 31. I thought he was still in his late 20s.
He's got some age on his legs, and I just kind of tweeted back at him. It's like, yeah, age catches up with you. He's got to start and continue to play smarter, not harder, and I think he's done that. But again, there's only so much you can do when you're not as mobile as you used to be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was quite an interesting thing here to figure out. But so in Aaron Rodgers' perspective, looking at him for the season so far through 6 games, 15 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's been sacked 11 times. His QBR rating is 115. He hasn't had a bad season, but I'll be honest, with as much talk as Aaron Rodgers has around him, you almost expect him to be where Tom Brady is right now.
Exactly.
Because Brady's just playing lights out right now, and the Patriots' offense is making it work, I feel like, with less weapons. Well, I don't know actually about that. So considering less weapons, it's hard to know for sure, but I think that Aaron Rodgers should be performing at a higher level than we're seeing from him right now.
Yeah, exactly. And in this article that we're referring to here on Sports Illustrated, talks about how in the Packers' last game against the Chargers, they marched down and had touchdown drives right off the bat of 87 and 85 yards. Everything was clicking in the first quarter. James Starks ripped off a long touchdown run, but then after that, they had 3 straight drives of 3 and outs, and they totaled 2 yards in 3 drives.
That's just embarrassing.
And just to, at least from a Packers fan perspective, we've seen that over the years where they just go lights out early on, just kind of struggle a little bit, in the middle of the game. Third quarter has never been kind to the Packers, it seems like, and then they always find a way to turn it around and, reignite their offense late in the game to get it done. Yeah. And it's just that ebb and flow and that swing that is so unsettling. There's just not a whole lot of consistency there throughout the game.
No, I completely agree with you on that one. I wonder if it's just bad preparation coming out of halftime. I don't know what exactly it is, but you always think about that. I can't really name a good third quarter performance from the Green Bay Packers in recent history, because it always feels like they've got some good momentum going into halftime. Then they come back out in the third quarter or whatever, and they're like, nothing coming. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, guys, it's fourth quarter. We should do something good again. So then they come back out. Aaron Rodgers is like, sorry, guys, let's pretend to win the game again. So then he comes out and does fine. But
yeah, it's like when the fourth quarter rolls around, they're finally like, oh, yeah, that's right. We got to beat this team, and we're going to find a way to win.
Yeah, no, I completely agree to you on that one. So, I mean, let's be honest. It sounds like we're both kind of on the same page with this one, Sam. I'm not completely thrilled with Green Bay's offense. I think Sunday night against Denver and then the following week against Carolina, two high-quality defenses are going to really prove not only to us, Packer fans, but also the rest of the football world just how good or bad Packers offense truly is. So let us know your thoughts about that. Let us know what you feel is a true representation of just how good or bad the Packers offense has done so far through the first 7 weeks.
I think if they come out of these next 2 weeks 6-1, I think if they go 1-1 over the next two games, they're going to be sitting okay yet. But they still have to show me that they can score and operate against the top defense.
Yep, absolutely. All right, we're going to jump to a break. When we come back, fantasy football, winners and losers so far through the first almost 8 weeks of the season. How's your fantasy team looking? We'll take a look at some of the hot producers and some people also you probably just want to get rid of off your team. We'll be right back. This is the BG Sports Show. Welcome back to the BG Sports Show presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Bax.
And this is Sam.
All right, Sam, it's time to take a look at some of the fantasy football leading scorers so far, not counting the New England Patriots last night. But let's take a moment, though, and I think we need to clap. I feel like for how well the Patriots, from a fantasy perspective, played last night. Just an incredible performance overall.
It was awesome. Tom Brady finished the game in ESPN standard leagues with 30 points.
Oh, my gosh.
Julian Edelman had 20 points to go with his 2 touchdown catches. Rob Gronkowski had 17, a lot of it off of that big touchdown he had early in the game. Deion Lewis had 16 and looked more like a wide receiver out there than a running back. And the Pats defense racked up 16 points as well. So having 5 guys, or 5 positions, I suppose, with 16 or more points, and on the flip side, Miami, they had 2 guys at 8.
Wow, and those are their leading scorers?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Tannehill and Lamar Miller.
Well, yeah, it was not a good game last night from the Dolphins' perspective. I mean, the Patriots won 35-7, so it was quite the ball game last night, honestly.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, let's take a look at some of the top performers so far here. I'm sorry, 36-7.
There we go.
Missed it by 1. Anyway, Let's look at some of the top performers here on the fantasy football world through the first 8 weeks. This is not counting last night's games, unfortunately, in our totals because ESPN has not updated that yet. But either way, looking at your top 5 performers so far, Tom Brady, no real surprise, coming in at number 1 with 153 total points.
Even before last night's game.
Yeah, he was the leader before last night's game. 16 touchdowns, 1 interception before last night. He's even rushed for 2 touchdowns as well, which is kind of crazy. Second place was Devonta Freeman. I know he's been the surprise, I feel like, this season so far.
He's been, the lights-out running back.
He has, 147 fantasy points so far, 9 rushing touchdowns, 1 receiving touchdown. Ryan for over 620 yards as well. It's been a good year from him so far. I mean, let's be honest. With Atlanta, you haven't had a great Atlanta running back in years. I mean, you could make an argument that Warwick Dunn was one of the last good ones that they had back in the day with Michael Vick.
They dabbled with Steven Jackson a few years ago.
That was never a good situation.
It wasn't. They've never had an explosive, dynamic workhorse that they can give the ball to 30 times a game.
And you know what, Sam? We were just talking about in our last segment the lack of production from the Green Bay Packers offense. Here's something that might blow your mind. Aaron Rodgers has 125 fantasy points this year, but
he's
also
the 5th-ranked quarterback.
He is the 5th-ranked quarterback, but he's also tied with Blake Bortles with the Jacksonville Jaguars for fantasy points right now.
He is.
Blake Bortles 125, but let's look at the number. Well, Bortles and Rodgers both have thrown 15 touchdowns this year, but Bortles has thrown 8 interceptions.
To Rodgers, only 2.
And if you take away those 8, even if you take away like half of those interceptions, Bortles has more fantasy points and more fantasy value.
And potentially more touchdowns as well.
It is, yeah.
I mean, who knows how many of those came in the red zone. We can look that up later. But there was an article that I read on ESPN a number of weeks ago, and it talked about how fantasy owners should sometimes we have the potential or the tendency to look at the name and that's it. Like you hear Aaron Rodgers, you hear Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, and you automatically think, oh, like these are guys I need on my team. You chase the big names, kind of similar to what you and I did during our NBA draft.
Oh, yeah.
But if you really want to be an educated and prolific fantasy football player, you need to look at the numbers. Mm-hmm. And he gave just some raw stats and then had you read them, digest them, go through them, and then gave you the names at the end. And over like the last, not counting last night, but over like the last 3 weeks, Tom Brady and Blake Bortles have had almost identical stat lines as far as touchdowns and production and yards. He's like, if you just look at the stats, they are almost identical.
But if you look at the name, everyone's going to say, oh, Tom Brady over Blake Bortles any day. And
10 times out of 10, and I can't blame that.
No, of course not. I mean, Tom Brady has had a consistent, dominant, elite career. And Blake Bortles is only in his second year. He's still trying to figure out exactly how to work the NFL lifestyle. But
who is he really? We don't really know yet.
And that's the hard part about it. And I feel this season, though, has been a good indication of who he might actually be because he's found some young receivers in Allen Robinson and Allen Hurns, and I even jumped on the Allen Hurns train, and I've got him on my fantasy team and have been okay starting him the last few weeks because he's produced.
Yeah, I think it was last year in our fantasy football league. You drafted Allen Hurns, or at least picked him up early on, and you had him on your bench, but no one really knew him at the time, and he went off for 2 touchdowns and almost 200 yards receiving at some point like that, and we're all like, what? It's a Jacksonville wide receiver. How is that possible?
I was David Kenyon before it was cool.
Yeah, that's all right.
Something like that. Yeah, one of the other things to point out here on the top, even probably top 15 here, is the Broncos defense is one of the top performers this year. No one can really blame them, though. They've got 106 fantasy points this year. They've scored 4 defensive touchdowns and had a disgusting amount of sacks and interceptions. They all fly to the ball. They've got a fantastic pass rush. Aqib Talib is playing out of his mind on the defense. This is really one of those teams defensively that can really scare the heck out of you.
Yeah, and to put that in perspective, the Broncos have the same number of fantasy points as wide receivers Julio Jones and DeAndre Hopkins. So
yeah, that certainly puts it into perspective, honestly.
Yeah, and they're also beating a lot of I would consider to be more mid-minor level quarterbacks and the likes of Matt Stafford, Matt Ryan, who I think is having a down year considering the hype that was around Julio Jones potentially being the number 1 guy in the NFL this year.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Well, I don't have the official number here in terms of where they rank overall, but I can tell you that Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, and Adrian Peterson all have 78, 78, and 76 total fantasy points, respectively. And let's just say I had to scroll down the page quite a ways to find them before I actually could make mention of them. And Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell. I know Bell was out for the first 2 games of the year because he was suspended. Yep. I know Brown's had a few injury issues, but Adrian Peterson and still. But You look at all three of these guys, and these are ones you'd expect to be top of this list, top 10, top 15 at the farthest that they fall down the list.
And I think you will appreciate this statement because special shout out to NFL kickers because of these three guys, they're all currently getting beat by the undoubtedly best kicker in the NFL right now, and Stephen Gostkowski, who has 79 points.
What an absolute great season from Gostkowski. Yeah, he has been one of those guys as a fantasy owner that you are just like, I'm glad I drafted him. I mean, look at his stat line. 19 points in week 2, 17 points week 3, bye week 15, 11, 13, 12. The worst week he's had was opening night. He had 4 extra points, and that's all he needed to do. He got him 4 fantasy points. But he's just been so consistent and so dominant.
Yeah, I mean,
put him in, Coach.
Let us know, listeners, who you think are some surprise fantasy winners and losers up to this point. How your team's doing, let us know. I know, like we said, the likes of the Pittsburgh offense and Brown and Bell, they've really struggled from the absence of Ben Roethlisberger. That just shows you how dependent their offense revolves around him.
Yes.
And how fantasy owners are just struggling and hoping he comes back sooner rather than later. But
well, I think one of the things, too, to keep in mind is just kind of the overall lack of production from running backs this year. Look at this drop-off. Devonta Freeman is the only running back in the NFL this year that is over 100 fantasy points.
Wow.
He is the only one. Devonta Freeman's got 147. The next closest probably will not even – you probably won't even know what to do. Mark Ingram of the Saints.
Mark Ingram is
When's the last time Mark Ingram was even considered one of the top running backs in the NFL? Matt Forte comes in with third with 84, Chris Ivory 84, Doug Martin 84. How the heck are those the top 5 running backs in fantasy in the NFL this year?
It's hard to say. I think a lot of hype was built up around the likes of DeMarco Murray and LaShawn McCoy. I think talent-wise, those are 2 of the best guys in the league.
Yes.
Just as raw talent, but just being, a little injury-prone and just in some really convoluted and confusing offenses right now. They're just really not sure what they're doing.
I agree with you. And you want to know where the ESPN's projected best running back for this coming year is right now? Eddie Lacy. He's got 35 fantasy points this year. 35. And I know he was injured, so don't everybody come jumping on me saying, well, that's not fair. Well, even still, he's had enough games to at least be relevant. And we see guys like Duke Johnson, LaShawn McCoy, even Aaron Foster, who is now out for the rest of the year. He's got 51 points.
Yeah.
He's miles ahead. It's some of these guys, like even Frank Gore, for gosh sakes, from Indy's got way more points than we've seen Eddie Lacy produce this year.
It's been just such a weird year. I mean, that's what makes it fun. That's why you and I have things to talk about every day.
Exactly, and that's the great part about it.
If it went as like what we projected every year, it just wouldn't be any fun at all.
No one would have a job. It'd be like, hey, look, these teams are good again.
Surprise,
Woo!
surprise.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's nice to have some little bit of consistency, but we need to talk about quickly the Chris Johnson factor as well. He's done a fantastic job for fantasy owners this year. 567 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns, 78 fantasy points so far. He hasn't even played in every single game this year, so he's looking
He's
really
found
good.
some spark in those legs again, which has been exciting.
It is, yes, and I think that was one thing that folks are worried about is like, oh, he's going to be so one-dimensional, running the ball, barely, providing good options for Carson Palmer out of the backfield, and so far he's really come out of it. One other person to keep an eye on as well, that if you are in maybe a deeper fantasy league, keep an eye on Marcel Reese out of Oakland. He's got 3 receiving touchdowns on the season. Danny Woodhead, also another guy to keep an eye on. He's got 2 receiving touchdowns on the year. Yes, just because they're a running back, you expect them to run the ball, but don't forget about guys that are going to catch passes out of the backfield. Also, Danny Woodhead's got 38 receptions this year. That's better than some of the Packer wide receivers. I think that's more than all the Packer wide receivers have this year.
Probably.
I think James Jones leads with 29.
And that's what makes some running backs like that just so quietly productive, and why Matt Forte, for most of his career, he's been in the Bears offense, who's had some success. They made it to the NFC Championship game, made it to the Super Bowl, but he accounts for so much of their yards from scrimmage, and why he can rack up 70, 80 yards rushing as well as passing.
Yep, I completely agree with you on that one. It's been a little ridiculous this year from fantasy, and I know some folks are not thrilled with the overall production, but you know what? That's why they play the games, and that's why the rest of us that call ourselves experts or pretend to know what's going on, we just get to talk about it all day. So Let us know some of your thoughts, and if you have any fantasy questions, feel free to tweet at us at BG Sports Show. We're happy to pass those along to our fantasy football expert, David Kenyon of Bleacher Report, and we will do our best to maybe provide some insight for you as well. Some other websites to check out, too, for those of you that are fantasy owners. Go check out TopDogStats.com, TopDogStats.com. Big website to use, and also Fantasy Sports Co. That's FantasySportsCO.com. Good places to get some good fantasy insight and advice as well. All right, we're going to jump to a break. We'll be right back. This is the BG Sports Show. Welcome back to the BG Sports Show presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Bax.
And this is Sam.
All right, Sam, it is Friday, which means the spotlight is turned from me over to you.
Wow.
Not like the spotlight is completely always on me, but...
I was going to say.
No, I'm just kidding.
I'm
It is
honored.
time to completely focus the spotlight on you and not share it with me for a short time as you have your Running 101 segment as you do here on Fridays on the BG Sports Show. So you, sir, have the floor, and we look forward to hearing what you got to say. So go after it, sir.
Going after it. All right, here we go. Looking in this week was a running article from Runner's World that I was looking at a couple days ago, and it said how the title of the article had a really interesting title. It was called "Peripherals Are Okay, but Not Shortcuts." And I'm thinking peripherals. I'm thinking side
as you're running, yep.
out of your periffs. Like peripherals are good, but not shortcuts. And it was referring to the approach you take to your training and how you need to focus on not just the running aspect.
Oh.
Obviously, if you want to be a successful runner, you need to run a ton of miles and things like that. But it's also talking about focusing on your peripherals and not shortcutting yourself and giving up on and not doing some of the other things that are going to make you a better runner. And the focus of that I was going to talk on today a little bit was the aspect of core stability. And how core stability it's key for any athlete. It really is. You need to have that strong abdominal region, that strong center of gravity. That's where your whole base is built from. That's what allows you to do what you're going to do and to be athletic and be mobile and be physical and things like that. But sometimes for runners, you look at some of the best distance runners, they're like 6'1", 6'2", maybe weigh like 130 pounds soaking wet. They're just these twigs on legs that don't look like very imposing figures, but I can guarantee you that every one of those elite distance runners has a core, at least a core strength. You might not be able to see it and be like, wow, that guy's got like a rockin' six-pack kind of a thing.
Yep.
But that could rival any other athlete as far as just the endurance that their body has. And the focus of that is that strong core really develops a lot of your running from there because it allows you and helps you maintain better form and proper stride length and proper gait. When your core muscles are strong, it helps your body stay upright when you're running, and you especially notice it in younger runners, middle school, high school, even some college runners. When you get tired, you lean forward. That's just what happens. You kind of fall forward. You're kind of just pulling yourself along and things like that. Those strong core muscles keep your torso upright and actually when you're bent over, it inhibits your stride because when you're bent like that, you can't lift your knees as high, and your stride becomes more like you're reaching for something. You're reaching. You're not like driving.
That's the worst part of like a long run. You just like that last mile. You're like, I don't want to run anymore.
And I'll admit, I'm as bad as the next guy. And some days when I get tired and fatigued, I'm just like, I don't want to do this. Like you're just kind of bent over and hunched and just wallowing in your self-pity and things like that. But again, not only just like the frontal core and the abdominal muscles, but on the sides as well. Your oblique muscles really help keep you from tipping left to right. Again, you can see some runners when they get fatigued, not only do they lean forward, but you can kind of see them start to sway and bounce left to right. And a lot of that is just wasted energy, unfortunately, because when you're running, you want all of your focus to be forward. You see some runners that bounce a little bit, that lean, that sway. All of that movement is wasted energy. Some of the best runners you see are guys that look like machines. They're just clipping right along, and the only thing that's really moving is like their legs and their arms. Like they are a perfectly standstill position, but they are flying along. And a lot of that stems from core muscle region. And that's one thing that any runner, from guy who just wants to get off the couch and go for a run to, your elite distance runners.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, too, because I've seen you and the cross-country team walking around when I've walked around campus before in the past. You guys usually are outside, doing a lot of core workouts, whether it is the sit-ups, the planks, anything that really overworks that core area, which it makes a lot of sense. And when you get tired, so much of your energy that you do draw, like you said, comes from that middle area. So if you don't have a strong core area, well, your whole body's just going to kind of collapse in on itself. It's going to suffer.
It doesn't matter how many miles you run. You could run, that'll obviously get you somewhere, but you need to work on those peripherals. You need to work on those subtle nuances to your sport that really is going to give you that edge.
I think I need to work on my peripherals.
There you go.
A little soft, as I can tell here. I'm a little soft. All right. Well, thank you, Sam, for your running tip. I appreciate it. Always insightful and always intriguing. Who knew that you could take so much from the sport of running? Because some folks are like, all you do is run. How hard can it be? Well, there's an entire science that goes into it.
It is, and I'm actually learning quite a bit about it, too, having to do some research, so I appreciate the opportunity.
You are welcome, sir. Well, I am glad that you're enjoying it. Kind of like you're enjoying your run of form here in the Bax and Grant Sports Show Fantasy Football
That was
League.
A good segue.
Thank you. I get those every once in a while. You're 6-1, Sam.
I am 6-1.
Leading all folks for the time being.
And I remember when you first did the draft, your random number sequence and kind of figured out who was going to go where in our 12-team pick, and you made a little video about it, and you were kind of breaking down every team, at least like on surface level, when you're like, okay, going with this pick is Joel Wolfrath and the Wolfpack, okay, and things like that. But when you picked out the Cuban Raft Riders, my team, you're like, all right, early shutout to win it all. And I was actually sitting in a hot tub at a hotel down in Illinois watching this, and I'm like,
with your gold chains
with
on.
My gold chains. No, it was actually I was on the road for work, and my buddy and I were just sitting in the hot tub after a long day of installing gym floors. And I'm like, all right, you know what?
Let's go.
The league manager wants me to go for it. I'm going to go for it.
Let's get to work. And you've done a great job so far. You are the first place overall team, but you're also first in the Western Division. I've got the first place spot with a 5-2 record in the Eastern Division, which is good, maybe slightly ironic as well, but there's nothing we can do about it. It's how we play the game.
That's why they play the game.
Exactly, yeah. We're having an interesting time here, though. I'm glad this isn't real life because my home record in fantasy football, I don't know how they judge how you're home and away, is 1-2, but I've been 4-0 on the road.
4-0 on the road?
I'm a great road team.
That's awesome.
Send me on the road, Coach.
I didn't even know they did that. I have to look that up.
I don't know how they determine that. I'm 4-1 against my division as well. My only loss coming against Chris Blakely, our MLS guy, his run from the one team. But I found it interesting, too. I am the only player in the Eastern Division here in our league that has won a game recently. Everybody else is on at least a 1 to 4 game losing streak.
That's so true.
Wow, and sad.
And you flip it around to the West Division and what I'm leading, and every one of us has at least a 1 to upwards of what I'm at a 6-game winning streak, and the one guy with the losing streak in our division is the guy you just happened to beat this last week.
Exactly, yeah. So it's kind of worked out interestingly that way so far. But yeah, one guy that we always talk about, our encyclopedia, David Kenyon, he's been on a 4-game winning streak. He's 4-3 coming into this week's action.
Yeah.
And he's had some pretty good production so far. I know he's got that man T. Brady on his team, so I'm sure he's pretty stoked about how his performance performance came last night. I mean, I'm down 7-12 right now against the Pallettown Monsters, which is our producer Danny Hoffenstein, who had 12 from Steven Goskowski last night.
That's not a bad place to have on Thursday night.
No, it's a good deficit to be on, right? Or I'm only down by a little, so I'm fine with that. But yeah, Kenny got 30 just from his one player in Tom Brady last night.
Traditionally, your quarterback should be your highest scoring position, so that's a good spot for him to be in. We'll see if Chris Blakely's team can respond this week.
Yep, exactly. One of the other games last night in our league was Zach Poppenfuss against Joe Wolfrath. Zach had 3 guys playing last night. He had Ryan Tannehill, so that didn't work out too well. But he did have Dion Lewis and Julian Edelman on his team.
I think he'll be sitting okay this week. Yeah,
both guys did really well for him.
Tannehill, 300 yards, 2 interceptions, a little underperforming, but having a running back go off for 16 points and then his flex go off for 20.
That's huge. Absolutely huge. And I know that Julian Edelman, one of those receivers that folks in the NFL are like, he's a good receiver, but I think people forget just how good of a receiver he actually is.
Apart from Gronkowski, he is Tom Brady's favorite target.
No question about it. And folks were thinking, well, maybe Danny Amendola might be a little bit more. We've seen Wes Welker in the past. He's really always favorited his slot guy.
Brandon LaFell, yeah.
And it's good to see, though. It's good to see that those guys are coming back. But I do need your opinion on something, Sam, as I'm trying to figure out some matchups here.
All right.
So the 2 matchups that I'm trying to decipher here on my fantasy team this week, I am looking at figuring out what to do with my defenses. I have the Minnesota Vikings defense going up against Chicago, or I have the Broncos defense going against the Packers. So I have the highest scoring defense in fantasy going against one of the highest scoring offenses, but then I also have the Vikings defense, who's done decent against one of the worst NFL teams. I'd like to think it's an easy move, but I would almost feel bad with the Denver defense.
I would go Vikings.
Yeah.
I would. Again, you're playing Aaron Rodgers, and I know we just talked about how inconsistent their offense has been over the time of this season, but again, I think if any team has the potential to really just start ripping off 25, 30, 35 points in a game, regardless of the defense they're playing, it's the Green Bay Packers.
Yep.
I just don't see Chicago just manhandling the Vikings. I think, kind of the reemergence here of Teddy Bridgewater over the last couple games. He has a great wide receiving threat in Stephon Diggs right now, and if Adrian Peterson continues to start to play well, I think the Vikings will keep it interesting and keep it close. I just don't see the Bears going off on the Vikings defense.
No, I'd agree with you on that one. All right, well, I think the Vikings is more than likely the way I'm going to go on that one. The other one I have is I'm trying to decide who to play at my flex, either Carlos Hyde, the running back for the 49ers, who takes on the Rams this weekend, or Kendall Wright, the Tennessee Titans wide receiver, who takes on Houston this week.
I think that should be a no-brainer. Look what Houston's defense went up against last week against Miami.
Yeah.
Just got trashed. J.G. Watt or not, Miami went off on the Houston Texans defense. Otherwise, you said, who's your other one?
Carlos Hyde of the 49ers.
Going up against the Rams, I think the Rams defense is too good and too strong.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one. It more than likely is going to be... And Carlos Hyde has been nursing a foot injury as well. Apparently, he did not participate in Thursday's practice, so that might have just sealed the deal for me. So, yeah. Kendall, I'm going to give you the start, man.
Scored a touchdown for you last week.
Yeah, on my bench.
Yep,
on my bench.
There you go.
It was good, real good about that. Do you have any things that you're deciphering through on your game at all?
Not that I know of right now. Again, I was a little disappointed that I drafted the Patriots defense. I've played them every week so far until this year because Miami was coming in pretty red hot. Got their new coach and under center, and he's been doing well, and they've been lighting up the scoreboard the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I figured, not that I expected them to beat the Patriots, but I expected a bit of a better play out of them.
I think a lot of folks were, because there was so much hype going into this game saying, the Dolphins are going to finally dethrone the Patriots. Tom Brady has won 12 of the last 14 games against the Dolphins and all of that.
Stats don't matter.
Yeah, stats. That's why they play the game. Well, yeah, but in this case, this stat did matter because now Brady is 13 of 15, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, and the Patriots defense scored 16 points for me on the bench. They had a safety and 2 interceptions, and they only gave up 7 points.
That's a good performance.
Yeah, I'm playing the Falcons defense this week against Tampa Bay, so we'll see what happens.
I like your chances in that one to be possibly a good contender there.
ESPN called, what did they call it? They said Atlanta has a very good chance against a sackable and turnover-prone Jameis Winston.
That is very true. Yeah, it's not been the greatest year from Jameis in terms of production. He's thrown the ball a lot, which if you're like in a PPR league or something, that might work out well for you. But if you're in a season-long regular commitment like this, it's
tough.
You don't want him as your starting guy.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to jump to a break. When we come back, we're going to switch to the three-point shooting wonderful world of basketball. The Milwaukee Bucks. Could this be the year that they actually make a bigger statement? We'll find out. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the BG Sports Show presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Bax.
And this is Sam.
All right, Sam, let's take a look at the world of basketball and the Milwaukee Bucks. Last year, they got a 500 record going 41-41, correct?
41? Yeah, 41-41.
Usually you look at that kind of record and you're like, well, that team shouldn't make the playoffs. But the Eastern Conference, for any of you that are true basketball followers, know that the Eastern Conference is terrible.
Very terrible.
And they were able, some teams were able to sneak in and make some headway last season. So congratulations to all those guys.
The Bucks went to 6 games with the Bulls in the first round, made it interesting. I don't think anybody really expected them to win. I don't even know if the Bucks thought they were going to win.
Yeah,
I think they were just happy to make it in. But yeah, they took two from Chicago. That was awesome to see.
That was huge for them. That was absolutely huge for the franchise to know that they could actually make some people a little upset in a good way in terms of like, wow, like this Bucks team
played well.
Actually is doing well.
And like you said, you see a 500 record out of an NBA team or really any team and you're just kind of like, all right, that really is the epitome of average. Like, good job, I think.
Yeah, but question mark. But considering where they've come from.
That was 26 more wins than they had the year before. 26.
Wow.
So shout out to Jason Kidd and the Bucks for really taking a franchise that, as this article that I'm reading here on ESPN states, that this is the franchise destined to become the next Seattle Supersonics. And the NBA basically looked at them and said, look, get your stuff together or we're moving you.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. But they were able to finally put all their ducks in a row and get a new target date.
All their bucks in a row? Or all their...
Yes.
Okay.
They got their deer in a row. They got their antlers together. I don't know.
Got them. All right.
Either way, they were able to go out and secure a new arena deal here in the Milwaukee area, which caused some controversy with some folks that are like, no, we don't need an arena. And some folks are like, get rid of the Bucks. And other folks are like, we love the Bucks. Don't do it.
Keep them here. We'll pay for it. Just take all my money.
Yeah,
keep the Bucks in Milwaukee.
Exactly. And the new arena that is being proposed and that has been officially approved is gorgeous. Like, if you look at some of the renderings and pictures of it, it's going to be hot, hot, hot. And then any of you that have never been to the Milwaukee area, you'll be like, well, what does Milwaukee have to offer? Milwaukee's got a few nice things. Let's not get too crazy here.
Bash it entirely here. And actually, when I was reading up about it a while ago when they first were proposing this, I heard some mumblings and rumors that it might not rival, but kind of emulate and simulate what Wrigleyville is like. I don't know if you've ever been down to Wrigley.
I have not, no.
I went to my first game down at Wrigley, not to transition to baseball here, but I promise I'm making a point somewhere.
Of course.
But went down to Wrigley. it's a very, very old stadium, and everyone, I think even Cubs fans knows the place is kind of a dump. It really is, but Wrigleyville is kind of like the city, the town built in and around the stadium.
Oh.
It's not like you leave the stadium, you're in a parking lot, and then like you drive home like it is at Miller Park here in Milwaukee.
Yes.
But it's like its own kind of setup thing where you can go there, you can shop, you can eat. They might have like a hotel across the street. It's going to be kind of this all-inclusive, not just a basketball arena, which I think will be really, really cool.
And I think for those of you that follow Wisconsin sports, you know that there is a proposed Titletown district as well for the Green Bay Packers as well.
They're something very similar to that.
Yep, they're looking to be putting in that in the next few years also. But this new arena is beautiful. So although the Bucks did not kick off their season with a win, they lost to the New York Knicks 122-90. And talented roster, though, which is great to see.
They have 81 games left. There's lots of time.
And that's the thing about it, too, for basketball fans, similar to baseball fans. If you lose opening day, it's not like, oh, great, we're done. We're terrible. We'll never play again. It's like, no, you got plenty of time. The starting five for the Bucks this year is pretty talented. John Henson at point guard, Greg Monroe, who was the big offseason signing that
huge.
Shook the entire basketball world. It's like, whoa, the Bucks got Greg Monroe.
Like, what's Greg doing?
Exactly. Like, he must have lost a bet. Like, what's going on?
Come on, Greg.
Exactly. But no, he led the Bucks in scoring on their opening night. Dropped 22 points. He had a great night with rebounds. Looked like the real deal. Now, you've also got Giannis Antetokounmpo as well, the Greek freak, as folks call him. He had a fantastic offseason, a lot of his time playing for the Greek national team, but also just in preseason ball as well, going outside of his comfort zone and really making a statement. I felt like every other day I saw some video from him slamming the ball on somebody or doing some crazy, spin move, and then it was great.
They say he's got the physical attributes to play just about any position that he needs to. I think he'll be kind of a matchup nightmare when guys go to switch on him, and they're going to be a little bit surprised by his versatility on the court.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you on that one. It's be like, oh, I've got Giannis, and he's gone. It's like, well,
I don't have Giannis.
Yeah, he's busy flying up the court, slamming the ball home. Chris Middleton will be the starting shooting guard, and Michael Carter-Williams will be the point guard. Obviously, MCW coming over on that trade mid-season last year. He's turned out to be pretty good. He had 20 points in the opening game of the season for them. So definitely something to... I'm sorry, he scored 24. What am I looking at? Yeah, Williams scores 24. That's what it was. I'm sorry. Michael Carter-Williams had 24 points opening night. I'm looking at the wrong Williams. Forgive me. Either way, Michael Carter-Williams, solid NBA player. I just wish I knew how to read.
That's right.
If only my English were as good as Michael Carter-Williams playing. That's what it is.
That would be wonderful.
Good Lord. Anyway, so the Bucks will take on the Washington Wizards tonight at 7 p.m. That game will be here in Milwaukee.
And the Bucks really got to get Jabari Parker back as soon as they can. And I'm reading the latest fantasy basketball spin here that said he was not available for their opener against the Knicks. He received positive reports during practices he participated in, but they're slowly bringing him back from his torn ACL. There's no reason to rush him back. I am more than okay with him taking his time.
It's a long season, folks. Let's not force anything here.
It says the Bucks have released no timetable for his return yet, making it unwise to speculate when it might be able to make his season debut, which I think is more than okay.
I have no problem with that. Let's let him get himself back to a good spot. Let's help him completely recover, and then we can work him in.
Yep.
We already know he's going to be one of the best players on the floor once he gets back, but there's no reason to just jump straight into things saying, all right, Jabari, we need you now. This is not a do-or-die situation. If the Bucks can grab some wins, a handful to, if not double-digit wins while Jabari's out, depending on how long he's out still, that'll be just fine. There's enough capable players on this team.
And I think if the Bucks continue to play well and grab some wins, that won't make him feel rushed to come back.
Exactly. Yes, and I think Jason Kidd is a smart coach in that respect where he knows the best time to bring in, the appropriate players. And I think Jabari and he and Jabari have had multiple conversations off court saying, all right, this is what we're going to do. This is what's going to happen. Let's get it going on.
Yeah.
One thing I always forget about Jabari is that he was born in 1995, which is 3 years younger than myself. I think you're 90, were you 93, right?
I was 92.
You're 92 as well. That's right. So we're both 3 years older than him. And we're not exactly, we're 23 for gosh sakes, but
Giannis was born in 94. I'm
my
what do I do with my life?
Honestly.
I could be playing for the Milwaukee Bucks right now. Come on.
You probably could make the first round cuts.
I might make it into the stadium. That would be about it.
Be like, hi guys. Be like, leave. Like, okay, thanks.
Yep.
Thanks for the time. Appreciate it. Yeah, with the Milwaukee Bucks though, so you look at this team from a longevity perspective. You look at they've got some great players: Giannis, Chris Middleton, Michael Carter-Williams, John Henson, Greg Monroe. These guys are all some pretty talented, younger,
they're very
talented
young,
guys.
Very young. Henson's 24. Let's see.
Is that going to affect the Bucks' overall season, though? The fact that they've got so many young guys, or is the youngness going to carry them because they've got so much youth in their favor, and they can maybe outrun and outplay some of these other guys?
I think their youth can help them for now. I think early season, they got a young coach, a young team, kind of a new resurgence. They kind of rebranded themselves over the season, so everything about them is kind of new, fresh, and exciting, which is epitomized in the players and the coaches. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people this year, but the lack of discipline, and I don't mean that in the bad way, but just the lack of experience, I guess I should say.
I think that would come back to hurt them.
That will hurt them when you start to play guys like the Spurs, who all the guys in the Spurs are probably old enough to be dads of the Bucks players,
most
kind
likely.
of thing. So
they're so old,
but they play so smart. Mr. Fundamental and Tim Duncan. I kind of go back to him as one of my personal favorite players.
Yep.
But yeah, the Bucks will play well. Their talent will carry them a long ways, but a playoff run is definitely a possibility, I think.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you on that one. I mean, we're only a game in. There's only so much that you can do speculation-wise, saying, oh, well, this team is going to do this.
Got it all figured out after one game.
Yeah, well, maybe not.
Maybe not.
Yeah, you look at this team last year, though. Brandon Knight was part of the team until he was traded. He led the team in scoring. He averaged 17.8 points a game. Michael Carter-Williams, even though he came in late and only got to play 25 games, he averaged 14.1 points a game. So the Bucks never really had anybody that was an all-out elite scorer.
No.
But if they they've got MCW for the full season. Once Jabari's back,
to wait and see. It's exciting. It's a definite exciting time to be a Milwaukee Bucks fan.
It is, and there was so much hype, and that was the weird part about it too, is that one thing that folks always argue, like, well, it's the Milwaukee Bucks. How exciting can they actually be? There are a lot of things going on in the city of Milwaukee.
There are. It's fun.
It is. It's a lot of
it.
fun. All right, well, we are going to skip off to a break. Sam, I know you got to run to class as well.
Yep.
So
unfortunately,
work hard, make me proud, and
Will do.
we will see you back on Monday.
Bright and early.
Enjoy it, and we will be right back with another break. We'll be right back. This is the BG Sports Show. Welcome back to the BG Sports Show presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Bax. No more Sam for the rest of the day as he takes off after every fourth segment here in our show. So to wrap things up, I want to just focus in a little bit on the action that took place in Major League Soccer last night, the final game of the MLS Opening Cup knockout round games before they go to their 2-game series, which will be kicking off on Sunday. So there was some crazy action last night if you are a Portland Timbers and Sporting KC fan, and if you are a Montreal Impact fan, you're thinking that you're doing just fine with life. So let's take a look back at both of those games real quick here to wrap up the show. It was the Montreal Impact getting a 3-0 victory over the Toronto FC club. The Reds, as they go by sometimes. But what an overall dominating performance from Montreal. We knew that this Montreal team was going to be decent. Like, that's about the best way that you can really put it. You're like, well, this Montreal team is decent. They've got Didier Drogba, Ignacio Piatti, Nigel Reo-Coker, Dominic Oduro. They've got some decent guys on their team. But the fact that they were able to spread the ball around last night and get 3 goals from Didier Drogba, Patrice Bernier, and Ignacio Piatti as well just completely emanates how dangerous this Montreal Impact team is. There is really no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Montreal just completely controlled the run of play. They looked like the better team for the entire game. They scored all 3 of their goals by the 40th minute and really proved that this is a team that can really be reckoned with no matter who they play. You can make an argument with Toronto saying, well, they're one of the better teams. Look at all the great players they have on their team. Toronto didn't play well at all last night. I mean, look at this team. Yeah, Sebastian Giovinco was on the field and he had 5 shots, 2 of them on goal, but he didn't really produce a lot from what you thought would be the Golden Ball winner, the Golden Award that he had coming in from the regular season. Toronto was outshot 17-8 last night. Montreal just completely berating that TFC goal front. The time of possession, or the possession overall, did go to Toronto's favor a little bit, but it was 51-48, so that tells you just how closely matched this game was from a passing perspective. It was a great overall performance from Montreal. They will be moving on Sunday to take on who are they taking on? They're taking on the Columbus Crew. So they will have a big game in front of them on Sunday. And then the late game, the nightcap that really got people going, was the Portland Timbers Sporting Kansas City game. I checked the score before I went to bed. It was the 76th minute. It was 1-0 Portland. And then I wake up to find out that it was one of the wildest, craziest, insanest finishes to ever take place, but basically. So 2-2 going into the shootout, and then the madness ensues. The final score of the shootout was 7-6 Portland. It was the longest shootout in MLS history. 22 total penalty kicks were taken. It came down to the goalkeepers to settle everything, where Portland's goalkeeper was able to blast home a penalty. Adam Larson Kawarse, and then Tim Malia had his penalty kick saved. John Kempen. I'm so sorry. They subbed goalkeepers. So it was just a crazy game overall. A good performance. Christian Namath got himself a goal. Kevin Ellis got a goal for Sporting Kansas City. Rodney Wallace got a goal for Portland, and Maxi Urruti as well, also tagging on a goal. So with that, it really sets the stage for a really, really exciting 2-leg series now going forward for both squads. You look at the bracket now coming up for this. So as we mentioned earlier in the week, that the New England Revolution lost to DC United 2-1, and then Seattle Sounders took down the LA Galaxy by a score of 3-2. So looking at it as it stands now, the Western Conference semifinals kick off on Sunday. You have FC Dallas hosting the Seattle Sounders. I'm sorry, the first leg is at Seattle, so Seattle will host the first leg of that. That game is at 9:30 Eastern Time on FS1 and TSN, so check out that one. So Sounders will host FC Dallas in the Western Conference semifinal opening game. The Vancouver Whitecaps will travel to Portland. That game will be at 5 p.m. Eastern on ESPN and TSN on November 1st. Over in the Eastern Conference, you have the Columbus the Columbus Crew traveling to Montreal. That game will be on Sunday at 7 p.m. That will be on FS1 and TSN. And the New York Red Bulls will travel to DC United, a big heated rivalry game for them. The game will be at 3 o'clock Eastern in DC on ESPN. So a lot of big games coming up for those squads. If you are a follower of Major League Soccer, please go and watch these games. Even if you're not a huge fan of Major League Soccer, the growth of soccer as a whole in America continues to grow, and you are not going to want to miss this set of playoff games. It's going to be so much fun, so entertaining. Even last night, as we saw, anything is possible, especially when it comes to penalty shootouts. So get out there, go check out these games, support soccer in America, and we will talk to you all again next week. Thank you again for tuning in to another edition of the BG Sports Show. A lot of exciting things coming up next week, some exciting announcements as well that you're not going to want to miss, as we are turning a new page, a new chapter here in BG Sports Show history as well. So remember, you can get us right here from 7 to 8 a.m. Central, live on Spreaker.com and on Periscope. You can also get us on Sports Radio America from 11 to 1 p.m. Central Time on Live 365 and tune in. You can get us on demand on iHeartRadio, iTunes, and on Spreaker.com as well. And on social media, on Facebook, we are the BG Sports Show. On Twitter, at BG Sports Show, I am at Baxter Colburn, and Sam is Samuel_Wallace2. And on Instagram, we are at BG Sports Show. And if you ever want to shoot us an email, get a hold of the show, or just chat with us, get at us at bgsportshow@gmail.com. Special thanks to Sam Wallace for his co-hosting today, and for everybody else that appeared on the show this entire week. We had a great time, so many great guests, so many different conversations. Let us know your thoughts on it and help us continue to grow this incredible show as well. So thanks again. We will see all of you again on Monday. Enjoy your packed NFL and MLS and NBA and NHL and MLB weekend. There we go. I couldn't remember the last sport. And college football, I guess, too. That's kind of a big deal. All right, thanks, guys. We'll see you all again on that one day that starts with an M that people usually don't like, but it's Monday. It always is better because of the BG Sports Show. So we'll see you guys all on Monday. Have a good rest of your day.